Hello and welcome to King's Church Cockermouth online. It's really great to be able to meet together, albeit virtually. So a really warm welcome to you, whether you're joining us live on Zoom or YouTube or some other form. And again, if you're visiting us, it really is great to have you join us. We are in the process of running two alpha courses at the moment, one with our youth and another with some adults. And just the other week we were looking at the question, why did Jesus die? And it was such a great reminder for me personally of just the mess that we're in our sin and our shame, and just what Jesus has done for us by his death and his resurrection. And I just wanted to read to you some of my favourite verses from Hebrews 10, but I'm actually going to read from the Passion Translation for a change. So here we go. Hebrews chapter 10, starting at verse 19. And now we are brothers and sisters in God's family because of the blood of Jesus, and he welcomes us to come into the most holy sanctuary in the heavenly realm, boldly and without hesitation. For he has dedicated a new living way for us to approach God. For just as the veil was torn in two, Jesus' body was torn open to give us free and fresh access to him. And since we now have a magnificent high priest to welcome us into God's house, we come closer to God and approach him with an open heart, fully convinced that nothing will keep us at a distance from him. For our hearts have been sprinkled with blood to remove impurity, and we have been freed from an accusing conscience. Now we are clean, unstained, and presentable to God, inside and out. Isn't that wonderful? And I just wanted to read that because as we go into worship, it's just so good to remind ourselves that we stand in the presence of a pure and holy God, but we stand not in our own merit, but we stand because of what Jesus has done for us. Murray and Grace and Blanche are going to lead us in some worship. So I want to encourage you, just thank God for what he's done for you and come freely and boldly into his presence.
Let our praise be your welcome. Let our songs be a sign we are here for you. We are here for you. hidden. You are our one desire. You alone are holy, only you are worthy. God, let your fire fall down. Let your fire fall down. We welcome you with praise. We welcome you with praise. We welcome you with praise. Almighty God of love, be welcomed in this place. We welcome you with praise. We welcome you with praise. Almighty God of love, be welcomed in this place. Let every heart adore. Let every soul awake. Almighty God of love, be welcomed in this place. We welcome you with praise. We welcome you with praise. Almighty God of love, be welcomed in this place. Let every heart adore. Let every soul awake. Almighty God of love, be welcomed in this place. How lovely is your dwelling place, O Lord Almighty. For my soul longs and even faints for you. For here my heart is satisfied within your presence. I sing beneath the shadow of your wings. Better is one day in your courts, better is one day in your house, better is one day in your courts, thousands elsewhere. Better is one day in your courts, better is one day in your house, better is one day in your courts, thousands elsewhere, thousands elsewhere. One thing I ask, and I would see, to see your beauty, to find you in the place your glory dwells. One thing I ask, and I would see, to see your beauty, to find you in the place your glory dwells. Better is one day in your courts, better is one day in your house, it's water to my soul. I've tasted and I've seen, come once again to me. I will draw near to you. I will draw near to you. Better is one day in your courts. Better is one day in your house. Better is one day in your courts, thousands elsewhere. Better is one day in your courts. Better is one day in your house. Better is one day in your courts, thousands elsewhere. Thousands elsewhere. Thousands elsewhere. Thousands elsewhere.
That's great. Thank you so much, guys. I really enjoyed that. Joelle has an interview for us now with a fairly familiar face. So over to you, Joelle.
Good morning. So today I am interviewing Roger, and he's going to be sharing a little bit about Christ Central with us. So we're going to start, Roger, with your this or that questions.
Okie dokie.
So the first one is cycling or running?
Oh, running.
Meat or vegetarian?
Ooh, meat.
Pet tarantula or pet corn snake?
Was that a pet cornflake or a pet corn corn snake? Oh, tarantula or snake. Oh, tricky. I think I'd go with the snake, but I think that Cheryl would want me to kind of live in kind of another place. I mean, we'd still be married, I think, but you know, she couldn't cope with the snake around, that's for sure.
Okay, so maybe don't get either of those then. Ennerdale or Buttermere?
Oh, good question. I'm going to be controversial. Ennerdale.
That would have been my choice. So finally, this is a harder one. Timothy Keller or John Piper?
Oh, cheeky. And I can't have both.
Nope.
Oh, no. I think I'd go with possibly Keller, but that's because today's Tuesday, and on another day, like on a Sunday, I might go with a Piper. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
Tricky.
Thank you.
Both worth reading. There's a plug.
Okay, so tell us about Christ Central. What is Christ Central, and what is your role within Christ Central?
Okay, so as a church, we're part of and have been part of New Frontiers, which is it's a family of churches really together. They're joined by some core values, but really joined. Yeah, I mean, it's been going for decades now, but on a mission together in New Frontiers, fathered by Terry Virgo, and we've been part since the mid-1990s. Kings have been part of New Frontiers. So, what is Christ Central? Well, Christ Central is part of New Frontiers. So, in one sense, it's the same, but different. Okay, because 10 years ago. Terry and the team that was with him at that time really believed God was leading them to multiply out all the apostolic responsibilities. And that was the birth of Spheres in 2011. And here we are, 2021, and we're part of the Sphere Christ Central, led by Jeremy Simpkins, who we all know, and in fact will be with us in a few weeks, I think, speaking. And basically my role, I'm part of his team. He asked me to be part of his team. I'm part of it. I connect in with that team quite frequently and have responsibilities within that. But as a family of churches, we're connected with churches across the UK, particularly in the north, but churches into Europe, Sweden, Africa. There's a number of African nations, Mexico, Canada, Middle East, and more.
Brilliant. That's really good. So what do we contribute to Christ Central?
Okay, well, I think it's important we understand this, because I think we're important as a church, Kings, we're important contributors to Christ Central. We give financially, so every month there's an amount that goes out that helps the ongoing apostolic work of Christ Central. So that's quite simple, but an important way that we contribute. But as well as that, it's about people, and there's a number of ways that we've contributed. So if you just think of Devoted, for example, that's happened over the years, we've got many, including yourself, Joel, but many others who have served hard and faithfully as part of teams to make Devoted happen. And, because we've got Paul, who has managed the whole event. There's been other things like regional weekends. Some of the churches in Cumbria have had regional weekends that folks from Kings have gone to help with children's work or youth work or things like that. So we've served. I think alongside that, it's been friendship, and through relationship and connection with some of these churches, there's just been genuine friendships that have been made. And I love some of the initiatives that have come out of that. So, for example, when the COVID kind of broke, as it were, and the world changed, that one of the immediate responses was that some of our folks part of Kings got together and were making face masks to send to Zambia, and you think that's brilliant, and then there's been contribution into a roof being constructed over there, and all of that comes out of friendship and relationship. And yeah, so I think as well, and it's always tricky talking about this one, but I'm employed by Kings, and when Cheryl and I moved here 15 years ago, actually part of the move and part of the agreement of us being here was to be released to serve 50% of our time to serve churches, outside of the local, and it was part of the vision really of Kings being a church, a resource church and a base church that can help other churches. So I guess in terms of one of the ways we contribute is that, Kings releases me, and you all release me to be available to get alongside and to help some other churches. But that's not just about me, others do that as well. And it's important to see that.
That's fantastic and really good to hear. So what's been happening? You mentioned a few things that have been happening from our own church with Christ Central through the pandemic, but what else has been happening within Christ Central?
Well, like us, it's almost worth thinking about local church, but on a much bigger scale. So as we've been meeting online, and we're doing that this week, so that's been happening across Christ Central, in the sense that there's been all sorts of teams meeting online. In fact, like this week, I've got a Christ Central prayer meeting tomorrow. They'll be part of a Christ Central Care for Churches meeting in terms of caring for churches in the UK. And then there's another meeting later on in the week about some of the initiatives that are happening out of Christ Central. So I think, we've connected a lot online. It's been a busy year, actually, of just being online, Zoom, sometimes FaceTime, but mainly Zoom. So connection has been super important. And I think in that, hearing, particularly from other churches in the UK, and hearing that we're kind of all in the same boat together, And there's a reassurance about that and an encouragement to that and a learning from one another about that. But also hearing from churches across the nations. I mean, for example, just hearing from the churches in Ukraine that are part of Christ Central, boy, it's been a challenge, just hearing of the amounts of money they have to pay just to be vaccinated. And so it opens your eyes to the wider, just what's happening across the world. But I think as well as that, this is what we've done, and we've contributed into this, but I think what Christ Central has been able to do, I think it's been able to be very generous in finance. And we had an offering back in May, June time. And that was the biggest offering Christ Central have ever had. It was 100,000 plus. It's quite a bit over. And a lot of that went over to Africa and made a huge impact. And even just about a week ago, hearing some of the reports on that, about the ongoing impact of that giving, it's been a lifeline to believers and friends, Joseph and Lillian, that we know as a church, being able to serve and help people in this kind of throughout the pandemic. But there's been training, folks have been able to access training online. There've been prayer meetings, and so there's been quite a lot happening.
Sounds like it. So finally, what can we be praying for Christ Central?
Okay, 3 big things. I think we need to pray for salvation, to see more people saved across the churches here in the UK and worldwide. And that, I think, has got to be up there, top of the list, more salvation. Then let's pray for wisdom as the churches come together again in person. Some have begun to do that, others are in process of doing that, others are about to do it. And let's pray for real wisdom that actually God really helps us with that. So pray for church leaders as decisions are made about that. And the last thing, okay, is let's pray we all keep Christ central. Okay, it can seem like a play on words, but I just feel it's so important for us all in our lives to just keep Christ central, in this next phase that we're moving into. So
thank you. That's given us a lot to think about and stuff to pray for.
Okay,
so
thank you.
If anyone's got any questions or they'd like to know more, please get in touch at pastoral@kingscc.org and we'll get you straight in touch with Roger. Thank you very much, Roger.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joelle and Roger. That was so good, wasn't it, to hear about New Frontiers and Christ Central, and just to be reminded that we are part of something much bigger. We're not just a local church, but we're part of a family of worldwide churches on a mission together. Just a reminder, those 3 prayer points that Roger mentioned. 1, salvation across all the different churches. 2, wisdom as churches decide how to come back together following lockdown. And thirdly, just to keep Christ central in everything that we are and that we do. Kids, an email would have come out this week with some stuff for you to do now all around the subject of peace. So if your parents haven't printed that off and given it to you, you can go and nag them now. But right now I'm going to hand back over to Roger. So Roger's going to give us a book review, and then he's going to introduce our speaker for this morning. Thank you.
Hi everyone. It's my privilege to do a book review this morning, and it's a newly published book by David Fellingham, and it's called The Unveiling. Many of you will have known David from over the years. He is a great worship leader, he's a songwriter, he's known for his prophetic input, but he's also a very, very good Bible teacher. And he's written this book on the book of Revelation. So, You mentioned the book of Revelation. I wonder what your response is. I know for some it can be really a bit of an avoidance because it can just seem all very complicated. There's kind of some strange images. You read about beasts and this and that. It can seem, it's just so much simpler to read the Gospel of Mark, isn't it? And so we can avoid reading it. On the other hand, Revelation for some has become a source of all sorts of strange teachings and all sorts of speculation and timelines and kind of just some odd interpretations, to be honest. Imagine if you had a friend who could just sit down next to you and who'd actually done a lot of study around the book and read what other scholars, other writers had written, and was able to present it to you in an understandable way that also had a lot of application and meaning for your life. Well, that's what David does. He does a great job in this book. He's like a friend who, as you read the book, you feel he's like a friend who sits down next to you and he just takes you through, and you go through every bit of Revelation, the more difficult bits, the complicated bits, and he serves us so very well. This book of Revelation is critical for the times we live in. Interestingly, Dave wrote this book during the pandemic. It helps us to worship. It helps us to be the sort of church that God calls us to be. It helps us to see Jesus as he really is, now enthroned, now exalted. But it also helps us to see the forces that are at work in the world that we live in. And it also helps us to see where it's all going to end. What's the big picture? What's the end bit of the story? It is such an important book that we do need to get to grips with. So I want to thoroughly recommend this book. It can be a real friend to help you understand this important book. I'm just going to give you a bit of a taster. Hopefully it won't be a spoiler, but a taster. But David writes this: my conclusion from my studies in Revelation is that the world will go on as it is until Jesus returns. But my other expectation is that there will be a glorious and powerful church that challenges the gross sinfulness of our generation and brings the love and the mercy of God. I hope to see an evangelistic thrust where we will snatch people from the despair that sin brings, where we will build communities of love, where we can pray for the sick and see many healings, where we can hear the voice of God through his word, where we can act like leaven by bringing truth and justice into society, where we can challenge racism, poverty and injustice, where we can restore family values and a right view of sexuality as God intended it, and where we can infiltrate society with the values of the kingdom. Wow. Okay. This book really is an important read, and I do thoroughly recommend it. Why not make it your summer reading? It will do you good, but it will help envision you and equip you for all that God is calling us to together as a church. So, The Unveiling by David Fellingham. And now it's my privilege to welcome from across the seas Pepe, who will be opening God's words for us this morning. Many of you know Pepe. Pepe and Vero, his wife, they visited us, their family visited us a few summers ago now, when Itzel had finished her year with us. She had such a great time serving us and was so loved, wasn't she, as part of the church. Well, Pepe leads a church in Leon, which is in the center of Mexico, and he also leads the apostolic team of Christ Central churches that we're in partnership with as part of New Frontiers across Mexico. And it's a real privilege and joy to connect with Pepe as we can in this way for this meeting. So Pepe is going to be opening God's word. Let's open our hearts to all that he shares. Let's let God speak to us as together we hear his word. Thanks so much for being with us, Pepe. And thanks so much, Itzel, who I know will be helping your dad. Okay, let's make the most of this. Thank you.
Hello, Cockermouth family. It's a pleasure to greet you. We remember you with love and gratitude. Vero, my wife, sends a big hug for you, and also all the church sends greetings. It's a privilege and pleasure to praise for you today, and it's a big blessing. Bless. Thank you, Paul, for this opportunity. And Itzel is here. Ella es mi bendición y mi traductora este día.
So Itzel is here and she's going to translate for me today.
Vamos a platicar un poquito acerca de lo que yo le llamo una especie de servicio a nuestro cristianismo.
We're going to talk about today something that I called service of our Christianity.
Pero antes de eso, seguramente Itzel querrá darles un saludo.
But before that, I'm sure Itzel would like to say hi to you, and yes, I would like to. And it's so nice to see you online. Thanks God we belong to the same family, even though we are in different parts of the world. And it's a privilege to be part of your family after so many years and all around the world. So yeah, I send you lots of hugs and I miss you so much.
Por eso comencé dando un saludo a nuestra familia allá.
So this is why I started giving greetings and say hi to our family in the other part of the world.
Bueno, vamos a estudiar este pasaje en la Escritura.
So today we're going to study this passage from the Bible.
Y vamos por favor a Marcos capítulo 3.
And let's look Mark chapter 3.
Y vamos a solamente a leer o a estudiar 3 versículos.
And we're only going to study 3 verses today.
Los leo en español y después que nos ayude Itzel leyéndolos en inglés para ustedes.
I'm going to read them first in Spanish and then Itzel will read them in English for you.
Después subió al monte y llamó así a los que él quiso y vinieron a él. Y estableció a 12 para que estuviesen con él y para enviarlos a predicar. Y que tuviesen autoridad para sanar enfermedades y para echar fuera demonios.
Afterward, so it's Mark 3, verse 13. Afterward, Jesus went up on a mountain and called out the ones he wanted to go with him, and they came to him. Then he appointed 12 of them and called them his apostles. They were to accompany him, and he will send them out to preach, giving them authority to cast out demons.
Este pasaje a mí me ha ayudado mucho para revisar mi cristianismo.
These passages from the Bible have helped me to evaluate my Christianity.
Como cuando llevas tu auto al taller para que revisen varios puntos para que funcione adecuadamente.
So it's like when you take your car to the workshop for them to understand some things and fix the car.
Entonces encontré que en este pasaje hay un resumen del cristianismo.
And I found that in those verses we can find a summary of the Christianity.
4 puntos que nos pueden ayudar para evaluarnos.
4 points that can help us to evaluate ourselves.
Quiero compartirlos con ustedes con la esperanza de que sean útiles y les ayude para mejorar en los aspectos que se necesitan.
And I want to share this with you, hoping that this will be helpful for you and you can evaluate yourself.
El primero de estos puntos es lo que yo le llamo un llamado irresistible.
So the first point is what I will call an irresistible calling.
Dice el versículo 13 que Jesús estaba con un grupo de personas y subió al monte.
So the verse 13 says that Jesus was with a group of people and then they went up to a mountain.
Y allí en el monte dice el pasaje que llamó así a los que él quiso y vinieron a él.
And then the verse says, he called out the ones he wanted to go with him.
Este pasaje claro que se refiere a los apóstoles, los primeros discípulos que siguieron a Jesús.
This is talking about the first 12 guys that were with him, the apostles.
Pero con toda seguridad se puede aplicar para todos los creyentes en Cristo.
But this can be applied to every believer.
Si ustedes han leído con calma los evangelios, se van a dar cuenta que a todos los que Jesús llamó, todos obedecieron.
And if you read carefully the Bible, you will notice that he called,
Ninguno de ellos se resistió, todos obedecieron.
that everyone that he called, no one resist about going with him.
Entonces, número 1, hay que recordar que el cristianismo comienza con un llamado de Cristo a nosotros.
So first of all, we need to remember that the Christianity starts with a calling from God.
No comienza nosotros con una intención de seguir a Jesús.
It's not about us with an intention from ourselves trying to go to God.
Creo que este es un punto importante para revisar porque por lo menos a mí
And I think this is a very key point to study because sometimes to me,
me sucede que estoy muy acostumbrado a ser cristiano.
it happens that I'm very used to be Christian.
Estamos muy acostumbrados a la iglesia,
We are very used to go to church.
a las actividades de la iglesia y esa dinámica.
We are very used to the Christian and church activities.
Y pensamos que el cristianismo tiene que ver con nosotros haciendo cosas.
And sometimes we think that Christianity is about us doing church stuff.
Y aquí leemos que comenzó con una iniciativa de Cristo llamando y nosotros obedeciendo.
But here we read that everything started with a calling from God and us being obedient to the calling.
Y la pregunta aquí es, ¿nosotros encontramos a Cristo o Cristo nos encontró a nosotros?
And the question is, did God find us or did we find God?
Y a mí me parece que la respuesta correcta sería, Él se deja encontrar.
And I think the correct answer is that He let us find Him.
Entonces, este punto creo que nos podría ayudar para tener cuidado que la familiaridad no nos haga perder el foco principal que es Cristo.
So I think this point is important because it reminds us that being familiar with the church and Christian stuff doesn't make us necessarily be with Him.
El segundo tema importante que veo aquí,
And the second point
en el versículo 14,
in the verse 14
dice que a esos que Él llamó
says that the ones that He appointed
y que además vinieron a Él,
and also went to Him.
el verso 14 dice, y los estableció para que estuviesen con Él y para enviarlos a predicar.
Says that He called them apostles and sent them to preach and be with Him.
el punto clave aquí es que dice que los estableció para que estuvieran con él.
The key point is that he established them to be with him.
Entonces debemos recordar que el cristianismo, esta dinámica de iglesia, no solamente se trata de hacer cosas para el Señor.
So we need to remember that Christianity is not just doing things for the Lord.
La idea principal de ser salvos es que el Señor nos llamó para que estemos con Él.
The main idea of being saved is that God saved us to be with him.
Entonces aquí dice que antes de enviarlos, los llamó para que estuvieran con Él, aparte, vivían con Él, tenían una dinámica de relación con Él.
So here we can read that before calling them, he established them to be with him and actually have a relationship with him.
Entonces nuestro tiempo con el Señor, nuestro tiempo de oración, nuestra devoción hacia Él debe ser prioridad.
So our devotion, our prayer time in relationship with him has to be a prior thing.
Creo que a veces tenemos como esa tendencia de, como estoy sirviendo en la iglesia, como soy cristiano, pues ya se cumplió como lo que debo hacer.
Sometimes I believe that we think that because I am Christian and I do stuff in church and I do church activities, I have done all my activities.
Nuestra dinámica de vida, que es estar haciendo siempre cosas, no solamente como cristianos, sino como personas, es una dinámica de siempre estar activos.
And us as people, as human beings, all the time we're doing lots of activities. That's our dynamic.
Y aquí leemos en la Escritura que Jesús, antes de decirles vayan, primero les dijo vengan.
And here we read that Jesus, before sending these guys, he called them to be with him.
¿Recuerdan la historia de Marta y María cuando Jesús llegó a su casa?
Do you remember the story of Martha and Mary when he went to their house?
Las dos estaban emocionadas de que Jesús estuviera en casa.
Both of them were very excited that Jesus was in her house.
Las dos quisieron atenderlo.
And both of them, they wanted to look and care for him.
Una de ellas intentó atenderlo preparando cosas en la casa y sirviéndolo con actividades.
And one of them tried to look after him, serving and preparing food for him.
Y la otra pensó que lo servía mejor sentada a sus pies escuchándolo.
And the other one thought that she would serve more Jesus being next to him.
Entonces la que está haciendo muchas actividades se queja con Jesús y le dice, ¿no ves que mi hermana está sin hacer nada y yo estoy muy ocupada?
So the one that was doing lots of activities, she complained and she said, don't you see that I am super busy and she is not doing anything?
Y Jesús dijo que solamente una cosa es importante y la que lo escuchó escogió la mejor.
And then Jesus said, only one thing is important, and the one that was sat next to him chose the best one.
Así, entonces, este segundo punto en nuestra revisión de nuestro cristianismo sería recordar que este llamado como cristianos es principalmente para estar con el Señor.
So the key point in these verses is to remember that the main idea and main point of Christianity is actually being next to him and have a relationship with Jesus.
Recuerden, Cristo no está buscando personas como para hacer milagritos o personas como para darles mensajitos, profecías.
So remember, Jesus is not looking for people to do little miracles or little actions or giving little prophecies.
Lo que Él está buscando es una relación estrecha, familiar, donde esa relación te lleva a saber su corazón.
What Jesus is looking for is having a personal and close relationship with you and for you to know what he feels.
Número 3.
And number 3,
También dice la Escritura que los llamó para que estuvieran con Él y para enviarlos a predicar.
but we can also read that Jesus called them to be with him, but also to send him and preach.
Ese es otro punto interesante que debemos de tener presente. El Señor, como creyentes, nos ha llamado a hablar a otros del Evangelio.
And that's something we need to remember, that as Christians, God called us to be sent and preach the gospel.
A veces parece como demasiado obvio, pero sí creo que olvidamos que el Evangelio se trata también de predicarlo.
Sometimes it might look very obvious, but I think it's something we really need to remember, that we are meant to preach the gospel.
Lo que entiendo aquí cuando leo este pasaje es que Jesús está diciendo que el conocimiento o la bendición que ustedes tienen sea de utilidad para los que no conocen.
And what I understand while reading these verses is that the knowledge God has given us is for us to share it with the others.
Digamos, en otras palabras, que lo que escuchamos en secreto del Señor tenemos que salir para hacerlo público.
In other words, I will say is like what we hear secretly from God, we are meant to share it public with the rest of the world.
A mí me encanta escuchar noticias de ustedes.
I like to hear news from you.
Y hace unos días escuché un poco de lo que comentó Roger, de lo que ustedes siguen haciendo allá.
And recently I have heard from Roger the things you continue doing there.
Su idea de su cafetería como resultado de la inundación.
I remember the idea of the bridge cafe as a result of the flooding.
Pero que escuché que eso sigue también y ha ido creciendo.
And I heard that continues and it's growing.
Y a mí me encanta escuchar cosas así.
And I really like and love listening to the news like that.
Porque a veces también pensamos que predicar el Evangelio solamente es que más gente venga a nuestra iglesia.
Because sometimes we think that preaching the gospel is just trying to make more people to come to church.
Y lo que leemos es que predicar el Evangelio también tiene que ver con beneficio para la gente, sean creyentes o no.
But we can also read that preaching the gospel is trying to give blessing to others and serving others.
Entonces aquí donde estamos es, primero, número uno, es un llamado irresistible de parte de Cristo.
So first we have an irresistible calling from Christ.
Así comienza el cristianismo,
That's how Christianity starts.
de Él para nosotros.
From him to us.
El segundo es que ese llamado es principalmente para estar con Él.
The second point is that calling is first of all to be with him.
No solamente para hacer cosas para Él, sino principalmente estar con Él.
Not only to do things for him, but being with him.
El tercero, que acabo de ver, ese llamado también es para estar con Él, venir y después entonces ir.
The third is that we have to be with him, but after that we need to be sent.
A veces allí fallamos en el sentido de que sí entendemos que somos una lámpara, somos una luz nosotros.
Sometimes that's the point where we fail, because we understand we are the light of the world.
El problema es que usamos nuestra luz y nuestra lámpara en la iglesia, alumbrándonos unos a otros y solamente nos deslumbramos.
The problem is that we use the light we have in us to light us between us just in church.
Tenemos entonces un llamado a seguir extendiendo la fama de Cristo donde quiera.
So we have a calling to keep spreading the gospel.
El número 4
And number 4,
dice el versículo 15 que a esos que Él envió les dio autoridad para sanar enfermedades y para echar fuera demonios.
and the verse 15 says that the ones he called, he gave them authority to cast out demons and to heal.
Entonces, lo primero que hay que entender aquí es que como discípulos llamados por Cristo hemos recibido de Él autoridad.
So the first thing we need to remember is that as children of God, we have given authority.
Aquí personalmente yo entro regularmente en un conflicto.
Sometimes here I have a conflict in my mind.
Porque me pregunto si a veces nuestras asociaciones o nuestras sociedades para ayudar a los necesitados
Because sometimes I wonder if the organizations and clubs we have to help others and help the ones in need.
O sea, mi preocupación es que una asociación en realidad sustituya la autoridad de Cristo como para sanar físicamente a las personas.
So my concern is sometimes maybe those organizations are taking the authority of God of healing those people.
Bueno, es un conflicto mío.
It's just
perdón.
a personal conflict. I'm sorry.
Pero creo que las dos cosas son una herramienta de Dios. Una asociación que ayude a los enfermos, pero también una oración que pueda sanarlos.
But I do think those two things are good. Like we can have organization and clubs to help the ones in need, but we also need to pray and use the authority to heal.
Y bueno, otro conflicto también más grande que tengo
And another bigger conflict I have
es este punto que dice que Jesús les dio a los discípulos autoridad para echar fuera demonios.
is the other part of this verse where it says that Jesus gave them authority to the disciples and apostles to cast out demons.
Y la pregunta que nos hacemos siempre es si en el tiempo de Jesús se nota mucho de expulsión de demonios porque había más actividad y ahora ya no, o ese es un conflicto también.
And the conflict is sometimes I think, maybe during Jesus' times they were more like demoniac activity because that's something we can read a lot in the Bible, or not.
O tal vez, quizá, en nuestra época, la actividad demoníaca tiene nuevos métodos.
Or maybe it's that now in our area the demon has different ways to act.
Entonces, yo como pastor y como psicólogo, una persona que está necesitada, una persona que no es creyente, le doy terapia o oramos por ella para que, bueno, no por ella, pero por esta persona para que sea libre.
So me as a pastor and also as a psychologist, I have a conflict, and sometimes when a people who is in need comes to church, I think, oh, do I need to offer him or her therapy, or do I need to pray, or what do we do?
O las dos cosas son herramientas de parte de Dios. Una terapia, pero podemos orar también por personas para que sean libres porque tenemos autoridad de parte de Cristo.
But maybe the two things are correct. We can offer them therapy, we can offer them help, and we can also pray for them because we have authority.
Y considerando que es verdad, los demonios son inteligentes y han encontrado métodos modernos de tener oprimidas a las personas y tenemos que estar listos para enfrentarlos.
And that's something we also need to consider, that I think demons and the devil is very intelligent, and he has different ways in our days to capture people, and we need to be prepared to pray for them.
Estos 4 puntos sencillos yo he encontrado que me han servido mucho como para hacer ese análisis o ese servicio a mi cristianismo.
So those 4 points have helped me a lot to evaluate my Christianity.
Pensé compartírselos a ustedes solamente tal vez como un instrumento que les pueda ser útil.
And I thought of sharing this with you so you can have them as a tool.
Estamos atravesando, o no sé si ya saliendo de este tiempo de pandemia complicado.
We're going through this difficult and complicated time of the pandemic.
Algunos con toda seguridad los ha hecho como bajar el ritmo y estar lentos en su cristianismo.
And for us, maybe this time made us being more slow and less active in our Christianity.
A otros quizá los tiene muy ansiosos y preocupados, ya queriendo volver a lo que teníamos.
To others, it might have made us being more anxious and worried about things and trying to go back to our normal activities.
Y todas las iglesias tenemos un reto de qué será lo normal y cuándo será eso normal.
And all churches around the world, we have a challenge of thinking, when will be this a normal thing and how are we going to do normal?
Entonces, independientemente de eso que suceda, creo que esto nos podría ayudar como con calma, tomar un tiempo, analizarnos a nosotros mismos.
And doesn't matter when normal is going to happen again, these points, I think, they can help us.
Y que en un ambiente de gratitud y de gracia podamos con cuidado poner atención a cada uno.
And so we can have these points and study them in a grateful in an environment full of grace.
Entonces, lo primero que les dije es que podamos animarnos y que podamos regresar a vivir con una actitud de agradecimiento.
So the first thing is we need to encourage us to go back again with a grateful heart.
Agradecidos con Dios porque por medio de Cristo podemos ser llamados.
Being grateful to God because through Christ we have been called to be saved.
Agradecidos porque hace muchos años o pocos años el Señor nos llamó y nosotros tuvimos que responder.
Being grateful because many years, or maybe not that many years, one day we were called and we were obedient and we went to Him.
En segundo lugar, recordando que Cristo es nuestra prioridad.
In second place, remembering that Christ is our priority.
Nuestra relación con Él debe ser prioritaria sobre todo lo demás.
Our relationship with Him has to be above everything.
Sobre todas nuestras actividades cristianoides.
It has to be before every Christianity activity.
En tercer lugar, tenemos como cristianos un llamado para cumplir la gran comisión.
Then we also have a calling to keep spreading the gospel.
Para algunos eso significa cruzar al otro lado del mundo.
For some, that might be going across the world.
Para otros solamente significa cruzar la calle y encontrarse con su vecino.
To others might mean just going in front of your house and cross the street with your neighbor.
Para otros tal vez significa cruzar un mensaje en una red social con un amigo en la escuela.
To others, it might just mean sending a message to a friend.
Entonces, tenemos un gran regalo y estamos obligados a compartirlo.
So we all have a big gift and we are under obligation to share it.
Y lo último que les dije es que tenemos de parte de Cristo autoridad para ayudar a los necesitados.
And the last thing I told you is that we have authority to help the ones in need.
Y tal vez esos necesitados son necesitados físicamente.
And they might be in need, like physical need,
O tal vez su necesidad es emocional o espiritual.
or maybe they are in need talking about emotions or spiritual need.
No importa cuál es la necesidad, tenemos un llamado de parte de Cristo para con autoridad ser bendición.
It doesn't matter in which area the people are needed. We have a calling to help them with authority.
Entonces los animo a todos, tómense un tiempecito con calma y hagan una especie como de escáner espiritual.
So I encourage you to take this with time, think about it, and make like a scan of your Christianity.
Y cuando tengas los resultados,
And then when you have the results,
los pones allí como las radiografías en una pantalla
you can put them in a screen just like you do when the X-rays,
y con cuidado vas revisando los 4
and then you can study the 4 points.
y allí donde encuentres que hay algo para mejorar,
And there where you can find something that needs to be fixed.
Otra vez con una actitud de gratitud pedimos la gracia de Dios.
Again, with a grateful feeling, we ask for God's help.
Y le pedimos que nos ayude.
And we ask Him to help us.
Hacemos los cambios necesarios.
We make all the change needed.
Y funcionamos para seguir avanzando como discípulos de Cristo.
And then we continue being fixed as Christ's disciples.
Pues otra vez, hermanos y amigos, es un privilegio poder estar aquí compartiendo con ustedes.
So again, friends and family, it's a privilege to be here with you sharing this message.
Están siempre en nuestro corazón y en nuestras oraciones.
You're always in our hearts and prayers.
Ojalá pronto, cuando todo se componga, nos podamos ver físicamente otra vez.
I hope when everything goes back to normality, we can see each other again physically.
Que Dios los bendiga mucho y les mandamos un fuerte abrazo de toda la familia y de parte de toda la iglesia.
May God bless you, and we send you a big hug from our family and from all the church.
Muchas gracias, Itzel.
He says, thank you, Itzel.
Si tú quieres despedirte.
Yeah, I'm just going to say bye. It was so nice to be with you online, and I do apologize for the mistakes in English. I love you, and I send you hugs. Bye.
Gracias. Adiós.
Thank you so much, Pepe and Edsel. So great to see you guys again, and thank you so much for that encouragement. Our time together's coming to an end, and so I'm going to hand back over to Murray to see us out with some worship. Have a great week, enjoy the weather, and God bless you.
Great is thy faithfulness, O God my Father. There is no shadow of turning in thee. Thou changest not, thy compassions they fail not. As thou hast been, thou forever wilt be. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning new mercies I see. All I have needed thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Summer and winter, springtime and harvest, sun, moon, and stars in their courses above, join with all nature in manifold witness to thy great faithfulness, mercy, and love. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning new mercies I see. All I have needed thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Pardon for sin and peace that endureth, thy own dear presence to cheer and to guide, strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. Blessings all mine with 10,000 beside. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Lord, you have my heart, and I will search for yours. Jesus, take my life and lead me on. Lord, you have my heart, and I will search for yours. Let me be to you a sacrifice, and I will praise you, Lord, and I will sing of love, come down. And as you show your face, we'll see your glory. Lord, you have my heart, and I will search for yours. Jesus, take my life and lead me on. Lord, you have my heart, and I will search for yours. Let me be to you a sacrifice, and I will praise you, Lord, and I will sing of love, come down. As you show your face, we'll see your glory. Oh, we'll see your glory here. We'll see your glory. See your glory, Lord. Oh, to see your glory, Lord. Long to see your glory here, Lord. long to see your face, Lord, to see your glory here, Lord.